How to lock the screen orientation. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'd like to welcome y'all back to another Android Pre-K tutorial. This tutorial is going to be focused on how to lock the orientation of your app, either landscape or portrait. This is going to be a real quick tutorial, so let's get into it. What we're going to do for this tutorial is we're going to use the same application that we were using for the list tutorial. Basically, what we want to happen is no matter which way we turn the virtual device or the hardware device, we want to keep everything in the same orientation. And you can have your application set up landscape or portrait and lock it that way. But for right now, we're just going to show how to lock your application into portrait mode, because we want our list to be displayed like this and not the long way as landscape. So as you can see, it's displayed right now as portrait. In order to lock your orientation for the application itself or for that activity, all you need to do is just come over to your Android manifest file and go down to the activity, the example activity. That's the application. That's the activity that we're working on right now, and we want to lock the orientation. So all we're going to do is just enter down, add in the code, and as you can see, it already gives us the hints. And we want to lock the screen orientation. So we'll just choose this hint right here. And you see we already have it, Android screen orientation for this activity. And all we need to do is you could type in portrait or you could type in orientation, but I want you to see what else they have in here. Alright, what we do is we come back all the way to the equal, add the equal again, and it'll give us the hints for what we can add in there. And you could either choose landscape, portrait, or if you know better, you can do better and choose one of these if it suits your application. But for right now, all we're going to do is we're going to lock our thing to portrait, because we want our list that is this activity, which is this, to only show up in portrait mode. That way, if you flip your hardware device for your application, it will only be seen in a straight up manner. So that way the user will know, okay, this is the way that you need to view this information. That's the way you have it preset. So we just come back over here and just save it, and then you just go to run your application. You should already have a configuration set up. You can just hit run, and it should already start running your application. And in a few seconds, our application should start up. Now, as you can see, this is the same application that we just had from our list tutorial. So we're using the same main XML file, and this is the application. And you can see that it's already in portrait mode, already vertically displayed. But there's another part of the tutorial is how to change the orientation of your virtual device. Because if you have it running for your hardware device, you can change the orientation and you can see it. But for right now, in order to change the orientation for your virtual device, all you have to do is hit Control and F12, and it'll change the orientation. You can see now we have it set up for landscape, but you can see that our application is still only displaying in portrait. And if you had your application set up for portrait, or you had your application set up for landscape, and then you put it in portrait mode, it would still only display in the landscape manner, and then they would have to change the orientation of the device to view the information in your application and stuff like that. So now you can see that it's all still portrait, so they would have to change it back. And you can change it back by hitting Control F11, and now you can see it's back inside of this mode. And I'm going to show you something else, because that's pretty much the end of the tutorial right there. All you need to do is just go to your activity that you want to lock the screen orientation for, and just set it portrait or landscape, whichever you want to use, and that's pretty much it. And you just save it and run your application. And you've seen this before. If we go home, and then we go to applications and stuff like that, there are certain applications that you can view it either way. So we'll open up the calculator so you can see. Like, see, this is the portrait mode of the calculator. In some applications, you could view it portrait or landscape depending on how you want to display your information. So if we hit Control F12, you can see it's going to display inside of the landscape mode if you change it to landscape. And if you change it to portrait, it'll view in portrait. Some applications do both. You've seen some games where you can only view it in landscape, and you've seen some games where you can only view it in portrait mode. That's because they lock the orientation, because they want you to display the information or it won't make any sense if you see a certain application changed up a certain way, because it'll take up the space, and or it'll have like pillar bars on the side, blah blah blah. You can lock it to whatever you want just by adding that code inside the activity inside your Android manifest file. Now, in some of the virtual devices, there are bugs where I think, like, if I change it back to portrait, it'll still display like this. And sometimes your application might do that too inside the virtual device, where we have it set to portrait, and the application can be either portrait or landscape, but it'll still stay stuck in landscape, or it'll stay stuck in portrait mode. And I think that's a bug inside the SDK or the virtual device. It's something that the developers need to work out the code for. It's not that big of a deal, but it is a little bit. So all you really have to do is just come back. Exit out of the program. You can start it up again. I like to just hold the home button, application comes up, and you go back. And that'll pretty much reset it to whatever orientation your device is set for. So since we have it set for portrait right now, it'll reset back to whatever you have it. And if we had it set up for landscape, then it would have started up in landscape. And that's a quick bug right there. But for the most part, your hardware device shouldn't have any problem. Either way you turn it, it should automatically swap around, and you'll be able to view your information inside the application whichever way your application can display it, unless you lock the orientation like this. And that's pretty much the end of the tutorial. Hope you learned something. Join us on Facebook, Android Pre-K, and join us on Twitter, Android Pre-K. Definitely subscribe to the channel and leave as much feedback as possible. Show your support, ask any questions. Try to make the questions relevant to the tutorial, but it's all good. Ask whatever you can. The community is real helpful. If I don't get to you, somebody else is going to get to your problem and help each other out and stuff like that. It's real cool with the way the comments go and stuff like that. So stay cool and design some apps, and I hope you learned something. Till next time.